Hey guys, Matt from Model Minutes here, and welcome to the 18th episode of Subscriber Showcase, the series where you get to show off your creations to the rest of the modelling community. Without further ado, let's get into this one. First up, we've got Ashton. Ashton has sent us a Spitfire. It looks to me as if this is the Spitfire Mark II in 1/48 scale from Revell. I say this purely looking at the model, having built one myself from previous experience. Ashton seems to have done a really good job of getting this model to this standard. The painting is quite neat, and the parts seem to have been put together really well. Maybe for your next one you'll focus on doing some detailing, or maybe some weathering. Thanks for sending that one in. Up next we've got the Flying Pizza, who sent in a few different kits for us to look at. I'm not particularly sure what tank this is, but it's definitely German. A Tiger 1, a BF 109, a Spitfire Mark I, and an FW 190. As always, please remember that if you're going to send me some images to look at, to include a bit of information, otherwise I'm just going to guess what you've built. I can tell that you're quite new to modelling at this stage, due to the fact that at different points on your models you've focused on different things to improve on. Looking at the P40, the decals are really neatly applied. The assembly of this green tank has been done really well. The Tiger 1 seems to be left in its original plastic format, but that's okay because it's moulded in that sort of colour. The BF 109 has been painted all over in a green, which I actually quite like. The camouflage on the Spitfire seems to have been applied really well. And on the FW 190 you've tried to do some modelling, so it's been a very good learning experience for you. Perhaps on your next couple of models you'll look at painting your canopies as well. I'm sure that will help to add a lot of realism to them. But other than that, a really good introduction to modelling right there. Thanks so much for sending those ones in. Up next we've got Grant, and he sent in a few models to look at. He says that he was an avid model builder in his early teens, and after 4 decades his interest was rekindled when he picked up a half-price Airfix starter kit at the discount supermarket. The first one he built was the Messerschmitt 109 from Airfix, and he was inspired to display it on a homemade base made from plaster and then painted. A little bit later he decided to display it flying in a raid over the cliffs of Dover. To go with this he had to build an Airfix Mark I Spitfire, again from the starter set. He says the paint originally was a little bit thick, but his techniques improved, and he particularly likes the models when they're in a weathered and grimy condition. After that, a Hawker Hurricane and another Spitfire, which he converted to a Mark V, and they were both mounted as if they were taking off from a grass field. Upon running out of space, he decided that he would use old picture frames from the loft and fine steel wire rods glued inside the aircraft and secured to the back of the picture. The backgrounds were sourced from the internet, printed off and glued to the frame base. Using this technique he was able to display models in flight and in dogfights. Not only is the build quality of his models exceptional, but I particularly like the way they've been displayed as well. Perhaps this is something my wife would let me do at home. Thanks Grant for sending those ones in, and who do we have next? It's Jamie. He's been modelling at this point for about 3 years, and he sent in his 1/76 scale Airfix Tiger 2, and it's set in the winter of 1944/45. I've yet to have any experience of doing a winter weathered vehicle, but I think you've done a really good job of getting that snowy effect on the tank. I quite like that it's got a little diorama as well, and that figure on the top helps to give it a little bit of life. What do you think of this one? Let Jamie know down in the comments. He's also got an Instagram, and I will pop a link in the description. Thanks Jamie for sending that one in. Up next is Joe K Models. This is his X29 model. He says the fit was pretty good overall, though he did have to make some small adjustments to the stabilisers to make them fit. Shaving off parts of the rod so it would fit snug against the fuselage and gluing it into place even though they are movable without the glue. For painting, did a bit of black basing and highlighted the inside of panels with white. For the overall colour, he made an insignia white out of 10 parts white and 1 part deck tan. Tamiya panel black was used to weather, along with green, yellow and washes for the interior of the wheel wells. The most challenging part was the decals, but he overcame this for the most part by cutting the longer ones and using a lot of microset to move them around and make fine adjustments. And if you'd like to see a build video, again, I'll pop a link to his channel underneath this. To be brutally honest, I think this Hasegawa X29 looks absolutely fantastic. It's a rather interesting subject, and I think you've done a great job of bringing it to life. So thanks Joe for sending that one in. Marsbar709 has sent in a Airfix P-51D Mustang, which he says is his best one yet, but he hopes to be building a Vulcan bomber sometime soon. I think from the skills you've learnt building this P-51, you'll do quite a good job with your Vulcan. The transfers have been neatly applied and the painting is quite well done too. Perhaps next time you'll get a slightly more aluminium looking paint, as long as your modelling budget can afford it. Thanks for sending that one in. Up next we've got Phil, and he's built his HE162A2 from Tamiya in 1/48 scale. This was his first time airbrushing and using Vallejo paints. If you'd like to connect with Phil, I'll put his Instagram underneath this. To be honest though, this is a fantastic looking model. Although this is your first time using an airbrush and Vallejo paints, it looks absolutely fantastic. The attention to detail is phenomenal. I really like the way that you can see the engine and all the bits and pieces inside there. Thanks for sending that one in, Phil. Up next we've got a couple of submissions from Pieter. Sadly, he hasn't sent in any information, so I'm going to have to pretty much guess what we've got here. The first one looks to me to be a Hudson, and it's making good progress there. The paints have been very neatly applied, and the transfers are going on. We've got a P-51 Mustang, or is that a Mustang 2B, something like that. It is very nicely done. I particularly like all the little bits of weathering and the fact that you can see the pilot on the inside. We've got a tank, possibly a Tiger. Someone correct me, I know you will. This is really well done as well. Lots of nice weathering, and I love those figures on the top to give it a bit of character. An F-14. Again, very neatly done. The decals are on there really great, and some really good attention to detail. We've got another tank on a little diorama base. I think adding a diorama base just adding a bit more visual interest. We've got a civilian looking truck, but given the fact it's got those little sort of blackout lamps, it's probably not civilian, and I'm going to hedge my bets that it's probably a military vehicle. But again, it looks really well done. I particularly like the weathering on it. And a more recent looking armoured fighting vehicle. Again, with some amazing paintwork. But Pieter, you have done a fantastic job of all these models here. So thanks very much for sending them in. Up next we've got TheSecondChannel, and he has sent in a couple of models. The car is from Revell, and it was bought about 2 years ago from a small local thrift store. It was sealed when he got it, and this is when he didn't know anything about building model kits. He didn't know about the cement and started using PVA to glue the parts together. Generally, he says the fit was quite good, but as he started using some super glue as well, it ended up fogging up the clear parts. More recently, he got around to painting it, but the windshield is missing now because it broke off. Moving on to the Mustang. On his Mustang, he's learnt a few more tricks and tips here to get this one started. Apparently, the fit of the fuselage halves was a bit bad, and the wings weren't great either, and the paint that was included was unusable. Over a 6-month period, he managed to get some more better paints, and I think it shows in the standard of the paint that you've applied. Generally, these are really good introductions to modelling here. I'm sure with your next few kits, you'll be able to improve even further. Thanks for sending that one in. And finally, the last submission today comes from Viaduct Central. If you'd like to take a look at Viaduct Central's channel, I'll put a link underneath. He sent in 2 models for us to look at today, which is a Vulcan and a work in progress Harrier. The Harrier, you can see good progress here. The build seems to be coming along quite smoothly. I'd say you're probably about halfway through with the assembly, but it looks to be quite a good kit to build. The Vulcan looks really good. The paint has been applied neatly, and the transfers have softened into the surface really nicely as well. The construction of this one seems to be really neat as well, with very few gaps being visible. Being such a large kit though, it can be a little bit unforgiving, and there are a few places here and there where the paint strokes are a little bit visible. So perhaps for your next one, you'll focus on thinning that paint just a little bit more to get a nice smooth layer. Other than that, absolutely fantastic looking kit. And I think you'll all agree that we have had some really nice models sent in this week. And if you'd like to get involved, here's how you can send in your pictures. What I normally do is read out the information, but I'm going to just put it on the screen there so you can read it. But the only thing I'm going to say is if you do send me something, please make sure that you write what it is that you've built. Otherwise I have to guess and I might get it wrong. I don't know everything. And the second thing is, because I have had literally hundreds of submissions to get through, I'm quite behind with this series. So if you do want to send something in, please only send me one submission. That way it's a little bit more fair and it allows everyone else to have a fair chance at having theirs shown as well. If you send me more than one after this video airs, so we're talking April 2021, if you send me more than one submission after this point, unfortunately I will have to just pick one to show and not show all of them like I have been in the past. But anyway, that brings to the end our 18th episode of Subscriber Showcase. Which one did you like the best? Which one did you think was the coolest kit there? Let them know down in the comments. Before I sign off, as always, shout out to my patrons over on Patreon, and if you guys would like to learn more about what becoming a patron means and the perks it gets you and how to join these people on screen, then take a look at the links in the description. Whilst you're in the description, you'll also find links to my social media, so feel free to check them out. If you'd like to see more modelling videos as well, don't forget to subscribe and click that like button. And last thing to say is a massive thank you to you, and I'll see you all on the workbench again next time.